for joining us for Lifetime's webinar for adoptive families. Tonight we are pleased to have a panel of adoptive parents to answer the questions that are on your minds. I just wanted to go over some brief contact information if you are new to Lifetime. My name is Kim King, and I'm one of the adoptive family coordinators. Our webinar organizer this evening is Libby Murray. She'll be piping in just a moment here, so I'll just keep it brief with a few notes of contact. If you are brand new to Lifetime, you've probably seen our website at lifetimeadoption.com. You will probably very easily find our free application right there on the website. A quick link to it is lifetimeadoption.com/apply. We recommend that free application as the very first step in letting us get to know more about you and being able to provide information that applies to your circumstances and needs. So it's never too early to fill that out and just stay in good communication so we can coach you through your adoption planning, whether we end up being the ones assisting you with your adoption or can guide you onto the path that is the best fit for you. Our hotline number is 1-800-923-6784. So feel free to call in during regular business hours if you do have questions that you'd rather talk with us about. You can also email questions to adopt@lifetimeadoption.com. It's nice if you can join us on Facebook as well. There are always conversations and notes of encouragement and tips every day on our Facebook page. We have a really nice community of adoptive parents, those who are currently in the program and those who are still staying in contact for moral support and just as part of our Lifetime family. So you can join us on Facebook at facebook.com/open.adoption. So with that, Libby, I'll give you the floor.
Okay. Well, we do have photos to show tonight, but they're not in any particular order because the topics are really up to our audience. So our guest speakers have all graciously sent in some beautiful photos that we can share that highlight elements of their story, but a lot of it comes down to what you, as parents hoping to adopt, future adoptive families, that what you're going to bring up tonight are what we get to cover. And so a lot of you have attended adoption Q&A webinars before, but maybe never really known someone who's personally touched by adoption, or maybe you've heard adoption stories on our webinars before and thought, man, I really wish I would have asked her this or asked him that, and this is your chance. So also, and Kim, we didn't really talk about this much before, but part of why I went to these guests and why we worked on coordinating tonight's webinar was because when we asked you late last year, some of the guests that stood out to you over the webinars that you've heard with Lifetime, Harrison and Rebecca's story was among the top listed, and then also Meredith, when you had shared over a year ago about your connection with your daughter's birth mom and talked about your relationship with Scott. So both of you were a hit with our audience before, and I know that you're going to be such a great help tonight. So with that, too, I also have up on the screen some photos of our families that are joining us tonight. And so to just briefly introduce them, some of you may have heard Harrison and Rebecca's story a few months ago when we did Adoption Month in November, and they had adopted their little girl last summer. And then some of you on the call may have heard either live or maybe you went back and visited it on adoptionteleconference.com. You might have heard Scott and Meredith's adoption story from when they adopted their precious little darling back in 2013. So to all four of you, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Yep, thank you.
Be here.
The other cool thing is that we didn't anticipate having 4 panelists on tonight, and we also, at first, we were just expecting just the moms, and then the dads chimed in and said, well, we'd be happy to answer questions. So all of you in the audience get the benefit of having not only 2 different families' experiences that each have their own unique personal walks through open adoption that look that look different, have some similar aspects but look different from each other. Also, the dynamics of their families are different. But you also now get the benefit of having the male-female perspective through adoption too. So I hope that you all will enjoy taking advantage of that. We already have some people typing in questions, so this is great. Just kind of as a reminder too, Kim and I will be happy to answer as many questions behind the scenes as we can. So if you ask a question and maybe it's not relevant for our guests to answer for you, you know, a good example is, did you get my home study today? I mean, our panelists aren't going to know the answer to that, but we will do our best to direct you to the person who can get you the answer. But, you know, we will cover as much as we can, and then hopefully you'll leave here feeling like you're one step closer or feeling a little bit more prepared or relaxed, so it'll go really fast, and we'll do as much as we can. So this is sort of a basic question, but I love it because I've already been asked about 4 times. So I think that probably means there's a lot of people in the audience who wonder the same thing. But we can start. Let's start with Scott and Meredith. This question says, did you choose or hire a lawyer before you were matched? Did you already have one lined up?
Yes, we had one lined up through Lifetime. And of course, when we were matched in a different state, all of that changed.
So did you have to have 2 attorneys or just one?
Just one.
Okay. So that's a good reminder too, that sometimes we might refer families to attorneys just to sort of feel them out and get some basic answers too, but you also sometimes never know what's going to happen until you know where your child's birth mom lives. And so then at that point, you know, did you have time to get an attorney lined up, or did you have to really kind of backpedal and go as you were traveling, or how did that look?
No, it actually worked out very well because you all referred us to an attorney in her hometown, in her state. So we actually hired him, and he was the perfect fit. We just knew he was the one. He was wonderful, great. Wonderful.
That's good. That's good. There was a follow-up question that said, why couldn't you use the attorney you started with?
Because of our state. We were in Virginia at the time. Well, we're still in Virginia, but I know you all have changed to an agency. And back then, when we applied with you all back in 2011, our laws were so different. So we had to do it through a California attorney to for our contract.
Yes. So Virginia families at the time were able to contract with us through an attorney, but now Virginia families can contract with us directly.
That's right.
Yep.
So that was, and that's for those of you on the call who are thinking, what? I mean, those are all things that can really come down to your unique situation, and sometimes that, again, like Meredith just said, that sometimes things change. Even for families that may have gone through failed adoptions before, sometimes you end up working with an attorney, the adoption doesn't pan out, and then you've got to go another direction in a different state. Sometimes it is kind of as you go, finding that kind of stuff out. What about you, Rebecca and Harrison? What was your experience like with those the legal side of things?
Well, of course, we got Lifetime. Lifetime recommended a lawyer, and he was great. We basically just emailed him, got all the information that we needed, but we didn't do anything until we were matched. And then once we were matched, we contacted him when we knew exactly what to do, how much it would cost, and all of that, because we didn't know what state we'd be adopting in. So.
So, gosh, we're getting a lot of questions about lawyers. Kim, we may have to have a totally different webinar just about the legal.
Well, and you know, if families, I know a lot of the families who are listening right now are in our program right now, and some of you are new to us. If you have a question about whether or not you should hire an attorney, where they need to be from, and who to be referred to. Talk to your coordinator if you have one. If not, just send us an email and we'll answer that according to your specific circumstances. In most cases, the rule of thumb is not to retain any legal services until you have a match. However, back in the days of Scott and Meredith's adoption, things were a little different, so theirs was a little different. It's not that way in Virginia anymore. So.
Right. And there's a handful of other states that we would also have more specific answers for too, because adoption laws vary to state. That's one challenge that we do walk hand in hand with families just to make sure that they're not doing anything that's going to compromise their match too. So this is great. I love seeing all these questions come in. This question I usually end with, but maybe it's a really good place to start tonight. Let's start with Rebecca and/or Harrison. What is one thing that you wish you would have known?
Oh, well, for me, it would be I would have had us do the home study while we were contracted with Lifetime. We did our home study right off and then was contracted with you, and that kind of slowed the process down. And then also, too, we had to hurry before we had to renew our home study. So if we'd done that all together at the same time, it probably would have gone faster and, more swiftly, not so drawn out.
That's interesting because we do get asked that a lot, if families should finish their home study before or at the same time. And it probably is a personal preference for some of those of you out there that really like to have things checked off before you get to the next thing. But there are a lot of you who are also thinking, yeah, that's probably what I would want to do. I'd want to do it all at once so that it's all on the same time.
Well, for us, the renewal was pretty much doing the same thing over again. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
How about you, Harrison?
I'd actually agree with Rebecca that I kind of wish that I had known which process to start first or to get them all started at the same time. So yeah, it just kind of that initial first step is always once you've gotten up the courage and the wherewithal to get moving, you're unsure kind of where to jump in first. So yeah, I wish we had done everything at the start all together so that we wouldn't have lost any time in the middle.
But at the same time, our home study provider is the one who recommended Lifetime.
True. Yeah.
So
that's interesting hindsight.
So if we hadn't done it any other way, I mean, the Lord has His time, and He's going to get us to you guys no matter what. But I think that it was helpful to have our home study because they were able to kind of guide us a little more.
How about you guys, Scott and Meredith? What is one thing you wish you would have known?
I wish we would have found Lifetime originally. We actually took the path that I guess we ended up wasting a year and a half going through, local foster care. We had to do classes and things like that, and we're sitting in these classes going, we're looking to adopt a child. We're not looking to foster children. And we literally ate up a year and a half of time and expenses, before we actually found Lifetime. And Meredith actually found you guys searching on the internet one night, and it almost felt too good to be true. But, once we teamed up with Lifetime, it was a perfect fit. So.
Interesting. And that's the truth. Like you brought up, some people are called to foster care. Some people are called to newborn adoption because, as you guys have experienced, it's much more than just adding a child to your lives. It's been so much just about the experience of bringing two families together.
Right.
And so it really is about finding out, well, what can we expect with this avenue, and is that really what we want? Is that what we're after? So I appreciate you saying that too. Meredith, how about you? How would you answer that question?
Well, the best way I can answer that question, if we hadn't have gone through the whole year and a half, waiting and looking in all the wrong places, it wouldn't have been Bella when we finally adopted. That would be my final answer.
She had a better answer than I did.
Well, and I think it's interesting that both the women on the call sort of looked back in the hindsight thinking, yeah, I wish I would have known that, but at the same time, would it have changed where we got, like
That's
where
right.
we ended up? And I hope that that's encouraging to those of you who maybe are already in the process of waiting. If you're thinking, did I do something wrong to get where I'm at right now and I'm still waiting for a child? I hope that you can hear these answers and know you're going to look back just like both these families have and think, we can't imagine a different child.
That's right.
That's great. So let's see here. All right. Oh, I think we may have answered this. Harrison and Rebecca, I know that you guys came to adoption differently, but did you research or screen or even try out other adoption professionals before coming to Lifetime? Had you tried adopting before?
No, we after we did our home study, we each researched separately and looking through the list of people that our home study provider recommended, and we both decided that we like Lifetime, and then kind of told each other, "Oh, I like this one," and he's like, "That's who I thought too," and we applied that night and got accepted. I think it was the next day.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
the next day.
So, yeah, so it was meant to be.
Now, let's start with Scott and Meredith. How long did you wait once you started with Lifetime? How long did you wait until you knew about her situation, about her birth mother?
It was, no, I'd say it was about a year and a half. We had been waiting, and we found out about our birth mom situation in December of 2012.
Okay. And then she was born,
March.
how long till she was
March,
born? Okay,
March
so a few
4th,
months.
2013. Mm-hmm.
And
So
I
that was
saw
our
her
early
question
Christmas.
earlier, but
Sorry.
did it surprise you, because I know, Scott, you had talked about sitting in foster care classes and thinking, well, we want to adopt. This isn't the path we're on. But when it comes to open adoption, a lot of people still get a little hung up on, am I ready for that? When you got introduced to Christina, to your daughter's birth mother, did anything surprise you as that match unfolded?
I would say that it became real at that point, and if anything, it was almost scary at first because I remember actually taking the phone call from Lifetime saying that a birth mother wanted to discuss with us her child, and I took the call originally, and I was excited, but at the same time I was like, this is really happening. And of course, having 3 biological children on our own, this is something we had talked about for a long time. It became real, and it was scary. But, because we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what she would look like, who she would be. We didn't know anything at that point. So, it was exciting, but it was also scary as well.
Well, and I think that speaks to a lot of people, because I think I will share, even birth mothers will share that with me, that the thought of getting to know strangers at sort of an accelerated rate than we usually create relationships, it is scary. It's a little exciting. Sometimes it's calming and comforting to imagine getting to know these people and having a say in that kind of connection, but it's also nerve-wracking because most strangers are a little awkward coming together at first. So once you guys were introduced to her, did those fears slip away? Did it just sort of unfold naturally, especially as Meredith and Christina developed a relationship? over those next 3 months until Bella was born. What was that like, navigating that time? Because some people don't have that long of time even before the baby's born.
You know, it seemed like we waited for so long to get matched. And, you know, anyone who's in the audience tonight listening, and, you know, if you've been waiting for a while, the thing is, I'm sure you've had the feelings to where you don't feel like you're going to get matched, or there's something wrong with you, or something like that. And it's not true. And if anything, after all this experience, I have more faith about everything is meant to be, and how different things happen in life, and there's always positives and negatives. And but I tell you, looking back now, this little girl is everything to me. She's everything to our family, and I cannot imagine not having her in our family. So she was definitely worth the wait, the trials and tribulations we went through. You know, she's the sweetest thing there is.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're getting a lot of comments about this photo that I popped up about how cute this is,
Yeah.
Patty.
My hair's not green in that picture.
Oh, it looks great. And this is the kind of photo, like, I love, you know, she's not all curled up and perfect and little bows or anything. I mean, she's got milk coming out her little mouth. I just love this, because to me this is a relationship here. This isn't just, it's not just a picture, you know.
No.
So you can blame your wife for sending me this photo.
Yeah, that's a great photo. I'm gonna send you guys another photo next seminar.
Okay. Harrison and Rebecca, how long did you guys wait until you knew about your daughter's birth mom?
Almost exactly a year from when we had our profiles finished and we were officially on a waiting list.
Mm-hmm. And so then, did you have a lot of time to get to know her, or did things go pretty fast?
Yeah, so we were called by our coordinator, Amy, about 3 weeks before Faith was due. And so, yeah, things kind of happened really quickly. And we only interacted with, Rebecca was only on the phone with the birth mother once before the birth. So we got to know about her, but we didn't really get to know her very well.
And so, I mean, that's always something we try and tell people to prepare for, is you could have time to get to know her, or things could move pretty quick. And so I know part of what I love about having the four of you on is that each of your families do have different experiences, but it's still open adoption. So Harrison, like what you're explaining is that her birth mother didn't want a lot of touchy-feely, building a friendship kind of connection, and she mostly just wanted to know you were lined up and ready. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, for the most part. I think in the end, we did get to meet the birth mother in person at the hospital after Faith was born, and we were caring for her in the hospital. We met the birth mother, and it was a really great experience, and we kind of had a brief touchy-feely, get-to-know-each-other kind of moment. But it was brief, it was short, and we haven't had a lot of contact since then. So.
Well, the thing, she's a private person, I think, was the main part of it, and she didn't want to intrude, and so I think that's important, that not all birth mothers, want to talk a lot. So we had to give her that privacy that she wanted, because she wanted to communicate with our coordinator first and foremost. So we had one conversation with her. We did get a couple of really wonderful texts, and then of course the meeting at the hospital was amazing. So we were able in our meeting to make that connection, to hug and to, talk and express our hearts. But before that, because it's, it's scary for us, but it's also scary for birth moms, because they're not sure exactly what to expect, how things are going to fold out for their story too.
So, Meredith, I'm going to bring up something while we stay on this topic because I know that you have a completely different connection with Bella's birth mother, Christina, and that did it sort of happen immediately, or did it maybe more unfold and you guys grew closer after she was born? What was that like for you guys?
No, it happened immediately. I think on our first conversation, we talked about weight gain during pregnancies and how that was not fun. And I mean, we were talking as if we were old friends, and it just started off that way, and it hasn't stopped. Not at all.
Well, and I know, like Rebecca was saying, that you also sort of navigated that match at her lead too, that you sort of let her set the pace of this is how I want things to go, this is what I'm comfortable with, and that you guys did sort of accept, okay, she's open to having this connection, so we're going to just embrace this and go, but that for a time that she also wanted things more with you guys and not so much about, like especially after Bella's birth, that she wanted more the connection with you, Meredith, and not so much like some other birth mothers may want to know all about the baby, talk to me about the baby all the time, while other women, they're more like, I have this really great friendship with my child's parents, and that's what I want to focus on right now.
Yeah. And she actually, to start off with, she wanted a closed adoption. And, you know, I remember back in February of 2013, we would text, and she'd say, our time is getting near. And we both would just cry because we knew that our time was almost up to be talking. And she always said, I wish we had met under different circumstances. And but then once Bella was born, she sent a little text, did you make it home okay? And then 2 days later, I have something coming in the mail for you. And then it just kept going. And I just would cry, and I said, you're making me cry. I'm so thankful you're still here. And she said, of course, I'll never go anywhere.
And so that was a little bit different than you had expected, just based on your match before
Yes.
she gave birth. And Rebecca, I know that you had a similar experience that you guys both did, just like Harrison was saying, and then you went on to talk about those moments. But what is that like to sort of roll with the flow as even the child's mother decides what she's comfortable with?
It's scary, but so I realize that the more that I make our birth mom comfortable, the more smoothly things will go. Not only for us and for our birth mom, but for our daughter too in the future.
Mm-hmm. Because what do you mean by that, but for your daughter?
Well, if we respect her and we still keep reaching out to her within her comfort zone, of course, and keep everything positive, no matter how little the contact or how big the contact, as long as it's positive, that's going to set up a positive meeting in the future when Faith decides she's ready to try to contact her birth mom. And it keeps the lines of communication open for us, even though we don't talk a lot. Because things are positive, I still can reach out to her, and she can reach out to me if need be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of a matter of gauging what she wants. And I'm sure that's going to fluctuate each year. So.
Well, and that's so true. And Meredith, you can speak to that. I want to bring up this one photo and just sort of get your response of what led up to this moment and then what this moment was actually like for you to now have this snapshot to remember too. Because like Rebecca was just saying, that it was about respecting what she wants and how she wants things to go, but also making it known that we're ready for more when you are.
Yeah. Goodness. Yeah, this was this past Christmas, and it was wonderful. Bella and Bella knows all about Christina. She knows all about her birth mom and her brother, her biological brother. And so just having her in our home, staying in our home for the whole week, Bella grabbing her hand and saying, come look, come see, watching them together. It just melted me every day. And if you look on Bella's wrist, she's actually wearing the gift that we gave in the hospital the day that she signed her rights over for Bella.
Oh.
And yep, and Bella went and found that in her jewelry and put it on and wore it around. So that's really something special.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott, you looking back at some of the comments you made earlier, which I mean I have to say, the things that all of you have touched on have been sparking some very sweet, reassured comments from the people in our audience. So thank you. But Scott, going through this last Christmas, having been so different than before, what is it like now? What would you tell maybe some of the other moms or dads in the audience who have that same hesitation or that same sort of uncertain, I don't know what to expect or how I'm going to navigate it? Now that you know more and that your family has this connection, what do you tell people when it comes to what open adoption is like or what it's like to have her as part of your family?
I'll tell you, it's been great. As far as having the birth mother in our life and in Isabella's life, it's great. It's different, but it works, and it's almost like we've gained another family. And I took the birth mother back to the airport. We had like an hour drive, and it wasn't weird. It wasn't, we just talked like we're friends. And I've got a lot of respect for her because she carried Isabella for 10 months. And that had to have been, that was so selfish of her to do that. And when so many mothers could have just easily gone another route and just thought of themselves. So I gained a lot of respect for her for that. But as far as the men out there, I remember Meredith and I guess when we first started dating, it seems like 100 years ago.
Thanks.
But the thing is we always talked about if we're fortunate enough to have our own children, we wanted to adopt our last. And reason being is because I was the baby, she was the oldest, and I know how just me being in that position of being the baby, I was more spoiled than the others. And so, the way I looked at it was, I think that we should adopt our last because if we have our own, we want to not make the child ever feel like it's not part of the family or, it's different because they're adopted. And it's not true. And the thing is, we wanted to get Isabella as a baby and bring her into our family and just create from there. And it's just all worked out great. But to the men in the audience, sure. I mean, I was frustrated many times, even back when we were in the foster care series of this whole thing. I remember going to Meredith and just getting frustrated and saying, I'm tired of putting life on hold. We have 3 beautiful kids. We're fortunate. They're all healthy. What else do we need in life? And but I've got a rock of a woman here, and she kept us on the right path. And the great thing is like I said earlier, this will be the best thing that happens to you in your life. And Isabella is that. So our kids mean everything to us, but she is special. And you know, I thought many times, even after talking to the birth mother the first time after we were accepted, I was like, you know, I don't know if I can love this child the way I do my own kids. And but man, all of that went away as soon as she as soon as she was delivered in the hospital.
I put these two photos together because, Meredith, you mentioned briefly just about her meeting her biological brother,
Yes.
Bella's biological brother. So here are photos of your smiley little girl with, you know, all her siblings. And Scott, it came to mind as you were talking, because I think that's a comment that so many people may even be afraid to admit they have, but that's something that holds a lot of people back. Even while they're waiting to adopt, sometimes in their head they're still thinking, is this going to be the same? Is there going to be a difference? You know, is it going to be hard at first? Am I going to have to kind of wing it? And I mean, what I love looking at your family, at all these smiley faces together, is they're just children together. I mean, that grin on her in those yellow shirts. I mean, it doesn't look like she could be any more at home. But I hope that what Scott just spoke to touches a lot of you who might, maybe you don't have that fear anymore, but maybe you did at one time, and maybe somebody condemned you for it or made you feel a little bad for admitting that you wondered if it would be a different kind of love. But it's okay, and that's something I think every parent has to move through. But I've also heard, I mean, since you had 3 before you adopted her, I'm sure even when you had your second and maybe even your third, you were thinking, how is it possible to add another child and love them as much as this first one or the second one, you know?
Exactly.
That it's something that I would say children probably always surprise their parents with how much more they love than they ever thought they could. And so just hearing you talk about that, but also how the fears went away with the connection with her birth family too. I mean, it's just amazing to think what could be ahead in her little story. So a good question, since you guys do have other children in the home, and you talked about how Bella already knows, you know, she's been hearing her story. How is it that you talk about adoption to your kids? How do they understand it?
Well, our other children, I mean, we talk to them from the first moment that
we actually, you know, wanted their opinions on it, because, you know, this is their life too. And so we were very open.
Yeah, very open. We sat down, and from then on, every day, they never stopped asking, when is the baby coming? That went on for a long time.
A long time.
But, you know, they were so excited. They were so excited, and they know Bella's story. Bella is learning about her story. It's a beautiful story, and learning about it every day. We point to pictures. She knows who her birth mommy is. She knows who her brother is. She talks on the phone with them. And, you know, even our son, who is 10 years old, he's even made the comment, well, hey, if I can't have kids one day, I'm going to adopt. And, you know, it's neat to watch what you do as parents possibly unfold to what your children may do in their future as well. So.
I want to jump too, because I love that you guys spoke from the side of we already had children, and then we had always talked about adopting, because I think a lot of times we also talk about how, you know, a lot of couples come from infertility before they come to adoption. Sometimes the only way they can become a parent is to adopt, and so that's its own journey in itself. But what I actually love about having both of your families on tonight is that that's not a part of your story. So Rebecca and Harrison bring to the other side that they were starting their family with adoption. And so could you guys talk a little bit about that, like how you came to decide to adopt, and then, you know, did you have any fears about, well, we don't have kids yet, or is anybody going to believe that we'd be good parents, or you know, what that was like for you to start adoption with your first child?
Yeah, we started thinking about adoption separately, and I didn't know Harrison was thinking about it, and he didn't know I was thinking about it. And one day I was watching a music video by Stephen Curtis Chapman about adoption, and it was then I thought, you know what, I have to adopt. I just felt like that was the thing to do. So I went and I told Harrison, and he goes, well, I've been thinking the same thing. So we then and there decided, okay, that's what we're going to do, and we started researching and figuring out what our next step would be.
And so this moment here, I just brought up Faith's little newborn photo. We had a great question that came in that said, do the mothers want to spend a lot of time taking care of their babies in the hospital? And so could you revisit a little bit about maybe more what your hospital experience was? And also we had a few comments from people who had seen the precious video you took of when you did meet your daughter, because it was a different experience since she wanted her privacy. You were waiting in another room when your baby was wheeled in, right? So let's talk about how we got to this little newborn photo here.
Yeah, ours was pretty unique in the fact that, well, you know, she didn't want us to be there, but she ended up having to have a C-section. So once the baby was delivered by C-section, she wasn't awake, so she didn't get to see Faith, and they actually wheeled Faith straight into the room that we were waiting in. And the hospital set us up with our own room and everything, and we watched and took care of Faith while our birth mother was recuperating. And at that point, she still didn't want to meet us and Faith, but she ended up changing her mind, and she came down to our hospital room, and that's where we had our first in-person meeting, and it was amazing, of course. I'm in another room. I need to see the photo here. Oh, yes. Yeah, that was, we were waiting in our little room that they put us in. How long after?
A couple days, maybe a day.
No, the photo. It was maybe a couple hours after she was born. Yeah. We hung out in that little side room before they moved us into our permanent room, because we had to stay there for the weekend while our birth mom recuperated from her C-section.
And so sometimes parents get nervous when they go in with a certain birth plan expectation, and then she decides either, no, I'm not ready to see my baby right now, or actually I decided I would like to meet you guys and I would like to see my baby.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster.
How did you go, I mean, how did you keep your nerves steady?
Prayer. You know, because each moment it seemed like, yes, we're going to do this, no, we're not going to do this, okay, go to lunch. She's not, you know, she was in labor for 30 hours before they realized, uh-oh, C-section. So it was a long, I don't know, day and a half. But did you hear that beep? Hello?
Yeah, I heard a cutout. I'm here.
Oh, am I here? Okay.
I'm here too, but typing.
Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah, so, yeah, pretty much a lot of prayer. And actually, I would also replay in my mind webinars of different people's experiences, you know, because you always hear, this is, you know, how you're going to feel, and you think, okay, okay. And then when you're in that situation, you're like, oh, I didn't think I'd feel like they felt, but you do. So you just kind of, I would, you know, think of those words of wisdom that I heard previously, knowing that in the end it's going to be okay.
I know because of just the nature of your relationship with Faith's birth mom that we don't have photos of her, but did you end up taking any keepsake photos when she did meet you?
Yes, yes. We have
Good.
one photo that we're putting in her album. So far, Harrison and I and Faith are the only ones who've seen the photo. And I think what we're going to do is keep the photo just for Faith and let that be part of her story and let her share that photo with who she feels comfortable sharing it with. We've already started her little album that I've been putting together that has that photo and has some other photos of her bio aunt that we have and her birth story and her newborn photos so she can look at those growing up. So, yeah, we cherish that photo. It's only one photo, but we love it.
Well, that's,
and it was actually,
and I love that you, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it was actually our birth mom's sister who took that photo, and I was able to text our birth mom and say, can I have that photo? And she sent me that one and one more. So.
Oh, perfect. You know, I love that you brought that up, and I would love to even get Scott and Mara's view on this too, but Rebecca, before we jump over, could you talk a little bit more, since there probably are people who are very curious, you know, especially when they know you have adopted, how do you respect your daughter's story as it unfolds and you help her understand and embrace it, while at the same time not giving everyone in her life every single detail so that she feels like everybody knows everything about her? How, since you have sort of a less open adoption as far as keeping in touch, how do you talk to other people about her story, or what kind of, how do you gauge who should know what, or when to take that chance to educate somebody and help them better understand, or what is that like?
Harrison, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think what we've done is we kind of safeguarded and vaulted all of the really personal statistics and details and things like that. So names, dates.
From the very beginning.
From the very beginning. We've taken all of that and we kind of locked it up in a vault. So that's going to be Faith's story. It's going to be Faith's thing. And we're going to show her as she gets older and is able to process it. And then we're going to leave the story in her hands. And we're going to say, you can share all of this or none of this or part of this with whoever you want. So actually our parents, her grandparents, don't know a lot of the story. You know, our siblings don't know a lot of the story because we're kind of locking it up just for Faith. But when we do talk about it, it's more generic, general details, and obviously our families know a little bit more than we would just tell anybody. But we try to keep things kind of different layers of information. And then sometimes, you know, friends or coworkers or somebody will ask a question that's a little too deep or a little too far, and then we just say, you know, that's too far, or that's something that we're letting Faith decide if she wants to share, and we don't feel comfortable sharing it at this point. I think it is a little different, like you said, with an adoption that's a little more closed than we were prepared for, because we want to make sure that not only is the birth mother's privacy guarded, but also Faith's story is guarded, because she's not going to have a lot of pictures to refer to. Nobody else is really ever going to know the birth mother. So we kind of want to make sure that the story is Faith and Faith alone, and she gets to communicate it the way she wants to.
And that's kind of how I gauge it too about the birth mom, because she's so private. I think, how would she feel about me telling this information about her or about her situation? And there's so many things to talk about that there's really no reason to go, you know, into the super gritty details. People just want to be included. So there's so much information that we celebrate, and all of it's celebrated. It's just, you know, she's not going to have much stuff to herself. I want her to have a little bit to say, this is my story. I get to tell people. So she's excited to tell people. And, you know, that person she tells, you go, oh, I already knew that. You know, she has a new story that she can tell people.
And so, Meredith and Scott, a lot of people have asked also, you know, now that, see, is Bella 2 yet? No, she'll be 2 in March, right?
Yes.
So and she's talking on the phone. Does she have a name for her birth mommy yet?
Yes, she does. I mean, she knows. She calls her. She's just starting to say her name, and it's precious because she's saying it like she's a 4-year-old. So, so yeah, and she's always, we've always referred to her as Mama. That's just what we've always referred. I mean, ever since she's been born, we'd point to pictures and say, "This is Mama Christina." I mean, that's who she is.
And so were there other people around when you hosted Christina this Christmas?
Yes.
Did they ask? Were they very curious about how are you navigating this relationship? Is this awkward? What is this like?
Nope.
How do you talk to other people?
Not at all. I think from the very beginning of Christina and I's relationship, it's been an open book. We have held nothing back from one another. I mean, we are as if long-lost best friends that were lost from each other.
They truly are.
I mean, they look related. Don't they look related?
Yeah. I mean, there's never been any secrets. There's never been any, it's all an open book. So from the get-go, even with her wanting us in the room during the entire induction, delivery, I mean, we met her at 4:30 a.m. at a Mexican restaurant to follow her to the hospital and stayed with her until birth, even after the birth. I mean, so I guess with it being an open story like that everyone just knew. They already know. They've known for all this time. So there were never really any questions about when she came. It was more excitement. Thank God. She's coming. Yay. I mean, just we finally get to meet her because, I had gone to Kansas with my 12-year-old daughter this past summer, but this was Christina's first time coming to Virginia. So all the grandparents and aunts and uncles and everyone was so happy to meet her.
So there's a photo you sent me. Now, I did just pop up the photo from when you got to be in labor and delivery, and actually that's a precious story in itself. And if anyone wants to hear more about Scott and Meredith's adoption story and what that was like, she went into detail when she shared her story on our webinar before about being the first one to hold Bella and skin-to-skin contact, and how Christina really wanted that for them and for her baby, and that was the way her plan that she wanted went down. So you can go to adoptionteleconference.com and find Meredith's story on there too. But you also sent me a photo of you with a bunch of women, and I was curious what this was about.
Yes, this was our girls' night out to dinner when Christina was here, and Scott got the lucky pleasure of babysitting all the kids.
and I had to bail three of them out of jail the next day.
No,
so.
He didn't. Oh. He's so silly. Right. But no, we had a good dinner, and so it was a lot of fun. Those are a lot of my good friends, and one of them's even my cousin, and so they were all there to support Christina and to support me. So it was a beautiful night. So,
and I hope that all of you listening sort of get the contrast that we heard, but they both go back to we're respecting the relationship that we have. Because sometimes I think adopted families get a little stuck in, well, this is the way I wanted it to go. Like I've worked with families before who have passed up opportunities to adopt because the birth mother didn't want any connection. And then there's the other opposite where the birth mother wanted a very open connection and people pass. And it's really more about how can we make this work? Like Scott was saying earlier, that it just works. It works for us. We never knew it would be like this, but it just has come to work, and that it's not something that just began the first time you ever spoke on the phone, but it's something that's unfolding. I would say, Harrison or Rebecca, you had shared before, and I think you probably agree with me now, that you are open to her if she wants to have more involvement in the future, that you're still sort of flexible to her.
Yeah, with her gift that we gave her, I wrote her I watercolored a little card for her, and inside I wrote a note that expressed how we felt about her, and I gave her my contact information in there so she knew she always could contact me, whether it be a year from now, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now.
So we did have a quick question here, because I know that sometimes this is a fear of some, and maybe all four of you could relate, but we had questions about how old are you, and did that play into any fears into getting chosen to adopt a child?
How old was that?
You're welcome to give general assumptions or to just share what your fears were around that.
Well, I was specific. I was 31. Yeah, I just had my birthday. So yeah, I was 31, but I don't look 31. People still think I look really young. So I was a little worried. Oh no, when she sees our profile, am I going to look like a teenager, you know? But the right person's going to see your profile no matter what you look like. So.
That's right. We were worried. We were worried because we felt like maybe they were looking at us as maybe being too old or having too many kids, and so, but it's okay. It all worked out the way it needed to be.
Well, for each couple, we can start with Meredith since you were just going on that. But what was it that Christina saw in you that made her choose you guys? Do you know specifically?
Yes, she said that we were just like her and her husband and their 3 children. So we matched their family. So, and she was a stay-at-home mom during the week, and so that's what she was looking for. She was looking for something that would be just like them. And she and her husband are very outgoing, just like Scott and I, and so looking for something just like home. And she felt at home when she saw us.
I love hearing that, because there's so many different things, but it is always comes down to you just felt right. And I love the way you said that she said she felt at home. Rebecca and Harrison, do you know what stood out in your profile to Faith's birth mom?
Yeah, our birth mom's very artistic and likes to draw, and that's one of my favorite things to do is art. So she liked that, and then she would, you know, when we were talking, she kept talking about how she loved how the nursery looked and how I decorated. So I think it, you know, just the interests and knowing what our home was going to be like for her child.
She also liked Rebecca's bangs.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember hearing that. Right. That's awesome. Well, and I love that, because those are both of you had different answers, but it came down to, are we being ourselves in our profile? And so if any of you are on the call right now and you're thinking, the profile just eats me up, I'm so nervous about it, maybe you already made one and every day you chew your fingers because you're thinking, is it working? Did I do everything I could? Or maybe you haven't even finished it yet because you just don't know how to get everything in there yet, at the same time not give her too much. But that's something that Lifetime walks through with you, but at the same time, I hope that you can hear these stories and think, you can't force it. It has to be something that just sort of hits her. And you guys couldn't have been anyone else. You had to be yourselves, because that's what stood out to her. So we have just flown through our hour tonight, and we had so many great questions, and I know Kim has been typing with some people in the background about some of the more logistic things too, so that's been awesome to see.
May I just add something real quick?
Absolutely.
Just back to what we were talking about, the information we give people. One of the things we did was a Facebook page because we get so many questions, and it was there where I would give them what I could tell them, and they felt like they were a part of it. And I think because of that, we didn't get a ton of questions because they were a part of it. We included them. So I think that's a good idea too. I just wanted to mention. It was our way of including them because we had so many people supporting us.
Yes. And Scott, going back to what you started with tonight, talking about waiting a year and a half and even before then, waiting time, even before you got to Lifetime, did your family or did the two of you as a couple ever have a hard time with the when's it going to happen questions or what's going on?
We did at times. I remember, leaving my parents after an occasion, family event, and Meredith just getting wiped with questions, and it just tore her up, tore her nerves up, and yeah, I mean, we definitely both went through those to where I didn't want to hear any more things because it was adding stress, and I knew it would add stress to Meredith as well. But again, what I touched on before, it's amazing how this thing has all come to, what it has become. And I could never in a million years imagined going into this thing that things ended up taking the road that it did, and what we've gotten out of it, and it's truly the best thing that we ever did.
And in this, and I would like to add, in this picture here, this to me is just what adoption is about. It's not only about you finally getting that little missing piece of the puzzle, because it's not a little piece. It's the biggest piece that completed our family. But, seeing Bella right here, these gifts she's opening are all from Kansas, her birth mother's state. And this is from her great-grandmother and from her other two grandparents for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And this child is loved by so many people, and you can't be loved by too many in life, and we are just so thankful to have all of them as our family.
A running theme between what you just said, Meredith, and then also what Rebecca was saying was just included. Like, people want to be included. And in open adoption, certainly a lot of times that inclusion comes into the birth family, and it's just about how can we honor that person's desire to just be supportive and be involved, and that you can navigate that person by person, and that just what you just shared here about having presence from them. I mean, for her to grow up just knowing that she can talk to you, I think both of these precious little girls will grow up knowing I have parents that are going to answer my questions. They're not afraid of my story. They've been open, and they've helped. They were excited about it. I mean, open adoption, whether you have an ongoing relationship with your child's birth mother from the get-go, or if it unfolds over time, or if it never really, becomes much more than just a name and a few photos, open adoption has just changed things so much, because now the children at least grow up knowing that it's not something you're hiding, but that it's something you are actually happy to talk with them about.
It's a celebration.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think it's so wonderful to have just the two different perspectives, but they all kind of come down to the same bottom lines, which are, I mean, I look at your families, and I just can't imagine different children in your families.
Well, thank you.
It's just amazing for us. We have the privilege, I think Kim would probably agree with me. I mean, it's just amazing for all of us, because we care so much about about the whole process. Like, it's a huge passion of mine that these mothers are feeling certain that this is the right family, that I'm not just being told this is the only family, take it or leave it, but this is my decision, my plan, what I'm giving my child. And then on the other side, we know that we're working with amazingly loving, eager families who are just ready to welcome a child and to be honest and loving towards that child's birth mom too. It's just so cool for us to stand back and see how each child ends up in the family that, I mean, in the end, it just all seems meant to be the way it comes down. And I hope all of you listening tonight to these two stories and these perspectives, maybe you can go to sleep tonight knowing that's going to be the same for my story, and it could be completely different than these two families, but it's going to be something that works for us, but that also couldn't have gone differently. So, Kim, is there anything that you want to add? Because I know you've been fielding a lot of the questions, and I've been trying to keep up, but they're hopping.
I've been fielding these questions right and left. No, these speakers, these panelists, volunteering of your own time away from your little ones, I mean, that's just so valuable to us. For everything to have come together like this and be orchestrated by Libby, and for all of you joining tonight, you know, offering your feedback and your questions. I mean, this has been a wonderful webinar, and I just appreciate all of our panelists. And I think, you know, if any adoptive fathers ever have to question, there is always room for an adoptive dad in the conversation. So you are always welcome.
Well, just thank you to all four of you for being here tonight. Is there anything that that comes to mind you want to share before we just close out tonight?
Yeah, just real quick. I was just thinking about, you were talking about Lifetime, and I was just thinking how wonderful our coordinators were, because we couldn't really talk to our birth mother like we would have liked. I knew that she was, excuse me, sorry. I knew that she was taken care of, and I knew that she was in safe hands, and that was a big comfort. And also, Lifetime, our coordinators, Amy was our coordinator, and was always there for us if, you know, we needed someone to talk to. So we love Lifetime.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and thank you all for everything you did for us. And to all you families out there, I just want you to know that there is a reason why you have to wait. And the moment that that baby opens their eyes, your heart will sink, and you will thank God you had to wait each and every day for this precious child.
That's actually what I had written down to say, but Meredith said it before.
Man, she's such a cheater, just copying off her nose. I know.
Thank you all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It was just,
Thank
it
you,
was just a
everyone.
pleasure, and I'm grateful to everyone who attended and shared your comments and questions. It just really fueled this along quickly. And if you liked tonight's webinar, I would love to hear it, so please feel free to give me any feedback or suggestions or questions. You can write to me directly, libby@lifetimeadoption.com. I also know that these parents joining us tonight would be happy to answer a question for you if you ever needed something from them personally, so you can always write to me and I can help you connect with them or with other families that might better answer your questions too. But you know, if you want more webinars like this in the future, we'll be happy to set them up. But we also, in a couple weeks, have one of Lifetime's directors coming on to answer questions all about home studies. So we're just going to have a whole webinar about home studies. So if you are in that boat where you can't get the home study off the brain and you just stress out about it every night and you're having horrible dreams about mothballs in weird places and what your dog does to your caseworker and what happens to the paperwork when it leaves your hands and stuff, just join us and put your mind at ease and just chomp through learning about this major step in your adoption. So look for information about that on adoptionteleconference.com or in your email. And again, if you have any questions and you're already working with Lifetime, remember to contact your coordinator too. She would love to answer any questions or get you more information. And then if you're not working with someone, you can always call and we will connect you. Our number is 1-800-923-6784. So thank you again to our lovely families who joined us to answer questions, and we hope that you will keep in touch and let us see cute photos of your babies as they get bigger.
Will do.
We hope you all have a great evening, and we'll talk with you again soon.
Good night, everyone.
Hey.
Good night.
Night.